Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I have successfully uploaded on a Sunday, yay for me. I hope you're all okay. I didn't upload last week. I went to a 90s brunch and it was honestly like the most fun I've had in a really long time. My best friend from university came down and my sister came down, and I basically went out with my best friends and we got incredibly drunk. We had a 12-hour drinking session, which I have not done in a really long time. It's also not very good for me. It's not very good for anyone, just FYI, just in case you were considering it. But we had such a good time. We all got dressed up in blue eyeshadow and butterfly clips and mum jeans, and we just went and had such a blast. So last weekend I was very much focused on the fact that my best friend was here. So YouTube did unfortunately take a side seat, but here I am and I hope you're all okay. I thought today I would film a little bit of a video just talking to you about what kind of happens now, where we are in the IVF journey. I obviously said in my previous video that not every video going forward was going to be IVF heavy, so it will still vary, but this is kind of where I'm at the moment, and so it felt most fitting to sit and have this conversation with you today. And yeah, next week I have my mum's dogs coming to stay for about 9 days, I think. My mum's going on holiday, so I've got both of her Labradors, so we're gonna have a really full house. So next week I promise you dog footage, because I know that that's, you know, everybody loves a bit of dog footage, and every single time I ask what do people want to see, they're always like, Bruce. So yeah, next week you can have Bruce, Gino and Luca. I hope you're all okay. Since I last spoke to you, a fair bit has happened. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen how up and down the last couple of weeks have been. I'm gonna put my coffee down because I feel like an old lady just sat here like talking into my coffee. And yeah, so I thought now would be a really good time to kind of just talk you through what's going on, especially for those of you that don't follow me on Instagram. If you do, then do head over and make sure that you follow me on there, because I'm active on there literally all the time. I'm an Instagram addict. I just wanted to really quickly say thank you for all of the messages that I got after my last video. I had quite a few messages on Instagram of people just saying that they felt like it was a really honest video and like it was one of the best videos I'd done. So I really appreciated that. I felt like it was a really vulnerable video, and I just kind of felt like I was laying everything down bare for you. So I really appreciated the likes and the comments and any messages that I was sent, so thank you. So in the last couple of weeks, things have gone a bit skoo-whiff. So the last time I spoke to you, we had our very first fertility appointment. I say our first appointment, it wasn't. Our first appointment was like 3 years ago. Our first appointment with the NHS since our private cycles, and our first appointment with the NHS since they reinstated it in July. So we had our appointment, we went in, I was weighed, so was Marco. They went through all our eligibility criteria, I had blood tests done, etc. And it was great. My cycle started on the Sunday, so we'd had all these tests done. On the Thursday, we needed to wait for my cycle to start to have my day 2 blood test done. So it was perfect timing. My cycle started on the Sunday, and on the Monday I went and had all my blood tests done. So they were all sent off, which meant that the referral could be made for the funding. So that has now all been done, and we are now literally just waiting for our new clinic to get in contact with us. I've really toyed with whether or not to share the clinic that we're going with. The reason I think I've been so apprehensive about it, I've had a few messages on Instagram from people asking me where I'm going, and I've not answered, and I've just kind of said at the moment we're not sharing that. The reason being, at the moment, the reason I'm not sharing the clinic that we're with isn't because I'm trying to be really private and coy. It's because with my last clinic, I didn't have the best experience, and I spoke really openly about that, and I think I put a few people off. And there were a few messages I was receiving where people kind of didn't necessarily agree with what I was saying, and which is always going to happen. I think if you share any aspect of your life, I think, you know, at the end of the day, you're bound to have some kind of comment where people don't agree with you, and that's absolutely fine. Everybody's experience of clinics are different, and my last clinic didn't necessarily do anything wrong. They just were not the right clinic for us, and I didn't get out of that clinic what I expected to get out. Different people have different expectations, different people want different things, but for me, I don't know, I just didn't find it a very pleasant journey at all, and I am a bit anxious about doing that again, just in case. Obviously I did share that we were going to Ark in Greece. I felt like that was quite important because we were going through the, we were going abroad. We'd also had like a clinic match service and things like that, and I wanted to be really transparent. For the purpose of the fact that we are going through the NHS and things like that, I'm really limited as to what clinics we can choose. And I feel like now I'm really building it up and there's no need for that. But basically at that appointment, we were given a list of 5 different clinics, and in Cambridgeshire, the clinics that are currently available, and I say currently because things do change, the clinics, as far as I'm aware, will only take on a certain amount of, I don't really want to say clients, patients, and it can change. I know towards the end of IVF being available in Cambridgeshire in 2017, towards the end of it, there was only 2 clinics available, whereas now there are 5. So we did have choices, and we were given the choice between Bourne Hall in Cambridge, we were given the choice between Create Wimbledon, we were given the choice between Care Northampton, Cambridge IVF and CRGH. So we have gone with CRGH. So the reason that we picked CRGH was because we looked at them privately. When we were looking to stay in England, our choice was between the Evewell and CRGH. So it just made sense for us that immediately that's where we were going to go. I share it because I welcome people who have been there before when I'm perhaps asking questions. It's a lot easier for me to kind of scout people who are in the same position as me. But that's the clinic we're going to. And because I'm going to be documenting it the whole way through anyway, you are going to see that. I'm not necessarily going to be sharing things as and when they happen. I think Marco and I have come to that conclusion. We've done it both ways. The first time we didn't tell anybody, like literally anybody, even our parents, until after the event and after it had failed. The second time we documented everything like day by day, and everything was really raw, and I found it quite difficult. It was great in terms of support, in that I was sharing everything on Instagram, and I was actively speaking to people who were at the same point of the cycle as me, who were at the same clinic, etc, etc. But at the same time, I found myself really comparing things, and I would get a lot of messages from people saying, well, you know, about this and about that, and comparing their cycles to mine, and I found it quite a lot to take on. This time I'm trying to kind of make it as chilled as possible, and not telling people that it's happening isn't an option because I found that more stressful. So it will be a case of I will be documenting it. I just might not upload like the egg collection like 2 days after the egg collection. So there might be a bit of a buffer in between that. But I am still going to share everything. I just need to protect myself a little bit. And also I feel like it's Marco's journey as well, and I need to do what he is comfortable with. He isn't always as comfortable as me at sharing things as and when they happen, and showing our most vulnerable moments as they are our most vulnerable moments. It's a lot harder to cope with. So yeah, so that's the decision we've made. We decided that we were going to CRGH, so all our forms have now been sent off. The funding, as far as we're aware, has been approved, and we are now just waiting. Our fertility nurse has said that the clinic should be in contact with us within the next few weeks. So our next step will be having a consultation with CRGH. However, it is me, and because it is us, and because it is Marco, and because we are the Itsos, nothing is ever straightforward, and there has been a rather large spanner thrown into the works. A few months ago, I spoke about this in my last video, but Marco had had a DNA fragmentation test, and the DNA fragmentation test came back quite poor. And he only had 37% of his sperm. It was either 37% or 39%, I can't remember. But only 39%, let's say 39% just for argument's sake, 39% of his sperm was okay. 61% of it was not, and was really quite highly fragmented. So what this means for people who don't necessarily know what DNA fragmentation is, the sperm, when you do ICSI, so ICSI is IVF, but it's where they effectively pick out the best sperm, rather than just picking any old sperm. With the DNA fragmentation, ICSI can't see DNA fragmentation, so it basically means where the DNA is broken. And therefore it either won't create a viable embryo, or it will, and after day 3 it will kind of start dropping off. It potentially won't implant, and if it does, it's quite high risk of then leading to a miscarriage. So DNA fragmentation isn't really something that you want. So our results, we knew that this was likely going to be the problem, because from our last 2 cycles, if you haven't seen, there are previous videos. I've got, like I say, the whole second cycle is documented, as is the first. As of day 3, we seem to lose a lot of embryos, and the embryos that do survive, I mean, bear in mind we've only had 2 that have ever made it past day 3, they're really, really poor quality. So it's not great, and it's left us in a rubbish situation both times, meaning on both occasions we haven't had anything to freeze at all. And yeah, it's just meant that our results have been quite disastrous. It's a bit frustrating because when our second cycle failed, the doctor had kind of said to us that, you know, it could be DNA fragmentation, but there's nothing we can do about that. It would still be ICSI. And every clinic we kind of spoke to after that, other than the Greek clinic, kind of echoed that. We did this DNA fragmentation with Fertility Solutions. I will put the link in the description box below because they are absolutely fabulous, and I really, really do recommend that if you have any kind of sperm issue whatsoever, to get that checked out. One thing that they said to us when they were going over our results was that, was it not for the fact that I didn't have any fallopian tubes, by sorting the DNA fragmentation, we could potentially conceive naturally. So wherever there's male factor infertility, I really think it's really worth looking at. So I will put the link in the description box below. So we spoke to Claire Mooney, who is one of the doctors at Fertility Solution. I think she's a doctor, I assume she's a doctor. So we spoke to Claire Mooney, and she said because of our results, they weren't just a little bit bad, they were quite bad. And therefore we got referred over to a urologist. So that urologist is Dr. Jonathan Ramsey, who is the creme de la creme. He is wonderful, and I cannot speak higher of that man if I tried. Again, I will put his website in the description box below because he is also fantastic. So we got referred to him. So he's a urologist, so he specialises in sperm. And we went and had an appointment with him. He was great. He was 100% confident that he would be able to help us, and that he would be able to increase the quality of Marco's sperm, that the DNA fragmentation wouldn't be an issue, and that our next cycle would be a lot better than it is now. And whilst he can't guarantee that the embryo would implant or anything like that, he was really quite confident that we would definitely have a better fertilization rate and everything like that. So we put all of our trust in him, loved him. He explained everything wonderfully. Like, he wasn't patronizing at all, but he wasn't making things really complicated. Like, he explained things perfectly. You might remember I had said that I'd had an infection that was showing up on my vaginal microbiome. It wasn't an STI or anything like that, but the bacteria that was present had kind of transferred to Marco, and therefore that was a really high factor in why the fragmentation had been caused. So Marco was put on a repeat of the antibiotics that I had already taken. So he was on that, and he was given, he was told to take Simprove. Again, I will put the link in the description box below, just so you know none of this is affiliated. I don't get any pennies for any of this. I wouldn't recommend if I didn't think it was good. It's pricey, but it's worth it. And I see a lot of people on Instagram talking about it, people with IBS, etc, etc. I know Em Clarkson, if you don't follow her, she's a really big advocate for it. So we bought the Simprove. Marco takes that every day. He was also on Impril, and the instruction was that he takes these antibiotics, he does the supplement protocol, etc. And then 6 weeks later, he was going back to repeat the test. Dr. Ramsey was completely confident that everything would be fine. So were we. Off we went on our merry way. In the meantime, we've also been under a nutritionist. So this was a gifted PR thing. I've been doing some work with Wellbeing Sisters, and they do like toxin-free subscription boxes for the whole of womanhood. So trying to conceive, pregnancy, motherhood, just wellness in general. So I've been doing some work with them, and as part of that, I had a consultation with Marco and the nutritionist Melanie Brown, who is also just incredible. Like, we loved her. Marco was absolutely dreading the appointment, to be honest, because he is such a fussy eater that he thought that we were going to go into this meeting and we were just going to be told, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you can't eat this, and you can't eat that. He came out of that meeting literally with a skip in his step, and he was so happy. He's done really well. Dietary changes have been made, but they've not been really difficult. Like, it really has been a collaborative thing. Like, she has worked with us based on our wants and our needs. So that's been great. So we were put on a supplement plan and a diet plan with her, which Marco had been following, I'd been following. So we were really confident. So we went back to have the second DNA fragmentation test done about 4 weeks ago now, and we were just waiting for the results. And I'm one of those people where whenever we are due to have any kind of test results back, I always ask for them to be emailed to me before the event so I can kind of look over them, and we also know what to expect. So I did, as I always do. We got these results through, and I opened them, and everything that was green beforehand, which, you know, usually means good, was red or orange. And we were looking at this like, this can't be right. This absolutely cannot be right. And we put the results side by side, and the results that had gone from like 39% good sperm had gone to 4% good sperm. And all the numbers had just changed dramatically, and the amount of fragmented sperm had gone through the roof. And it was really stressful, because we were a bit like, oh no. We used much stronger language than oh no. This isn't good, because we are due to start a cycle perhaps next month or whenever it is that, you know, we can. And now these results are all over the place, like what on earth do we do? So I messaged my nutritionist and I said to her, like, what on earth is going on? We emailed the clinic, because at this point I was absolutely convinced that these were not our results and that we had been sent somebody else's results. Because how, after antibiotics and supplements and dietary changes and everything else, how has it gone from bad to horrific? Like, there was no logical explanation in my mind as to why that had happened. So I emailed them and I just kind of said, like, I'm really quite panicky about this now, a little bit worried, would like these looking into, because if we're going to come all the way down to Beaconsfield and we're paying this money for a consultation, like, I want to know what's going on, and I want to make sure that, you know, we're not going to get there and everybody's going, well, these aren't right. And they did. And in fairness, Dr. Ramsey rang us that afternoon, and Marco was like, this is service. This is good service. This is what we pay for. He rang and he was really like, okay, I have checked everything. I have checked that these are your results. They are your results. And he went over everything with us. And there's a lot of factors that could have played a part in this. And there's a possibility that Marco had had COVID and had been asymptomatic, and therefore that had impacted it. He could have been ill with anything. There were a lot of different explanations as to what could have caused it. However, he's confident that it's only temporary. And we're confident that it's only temporary. I think we went into complete panic mode, as you would, but he had such logical explanations for everything, of all these different possibilities of what it could have been, especially when you take into consideration the fact that sperm takes 3 months to regenerate. So his sample in June was impacted by anything in May, April, March. Yeah, so like anything 3 months prior. So it could have literally been anything that impacted it. And chances are, like, Marco did have laryngitis. So it could be that that had impacted it. It could be that the laryngitis was actually COVID. It could be that he'd had COVID and was asymptomatic. Like, there's a lot of different things it could have been. So we went down on Tuesday. We drove to Beaconsfield and we had this follow-up appointment with him, and he went over everything with us again, completely in layman's terms, and it was great. And we left feeling really confident. The nutritionist has made changes to Marco's plan, etc. We were due to repeat the test on Tuesday to make sure that everything was improving again, but we decided to leave it a few more weeks. We decided that he would massively reduce which supplements he was on. So he's now only taking Pro-Sieve and something else, his Simprove. So he's only taking the Pro-Sieve and the probiotics, and he is just continuing with that for now. And then in 3 weeks' time, we will repeat that test again, and hopefully we will see that it is increasing again, and therefore it makes perfect sense. If our next lot of results come back really poor, then more investigations need to be done. But for now, we feel like we're back on the up. It's potentially pushed our cycle back, which is quite stressful. I'm not over the moon about that. We have decided that when CRGH do get in contact with us, we are going to go and have that consultation with them, and we will explain everything. CRGH are one of the clinics as well that will do things like IMSI or PICSI, and Zymot, which are all things that we were going to have in Greece. They are add-ons that we were due to be having if we were to go to ARC IVF, and they are quite good when DNA fragmentation is present. Dr. Ramsey did say that we can ask for that. However, because we are now NHS funded, there is a chance that they won't be funded by the NHS because DNA fragmentation investigations and all things like that are not NHS funded. But because we've had all that done privately, there is a possibility that we could push for that. He said to ask the question, which we most definitely will do. But there is also the option of us then paying privately on top of that for the PICSI, the Zymot, the IMSI, whichever one the consultants think is best or necessary for us. So it may be that we have an NHS funded cycle, but any add-ons that we want, such as that we have to pay for, which is fine. But like I say, it potentially has pushed our cycle back. We were hoping for either an end of October, possibly end of November cycle, but on the basis that we're not repeating the DNA fragmentation test until nearly the end of October, it takes about 3 weeks to get those results back. We could be pushing it really, really fine. But with how unpredictable my cycles are, I suppose nobody knows. But that's kind of where we're at now. Like I say, we went into complete panic mode, and I think it's really hard not to. And I think whenever you're going through IVF, if you've been doing something which is meant to have positive results and the results are worse, of course you're going to go into like a complete meltdown. I think it's completely normal. But it was so crazy how that morning we woke up and honestly we felt like we'd had a failed cycle. I can't explain it to you, but we just felt like we'd been hit with a ton of bricks, and like we really thought we had done everything we could possibly do to better our situation, to then just feel like we were right back at the beginning and we had no idea why. So it was really stressful. But like I say, we've spoken to the professionals now, we've spoken to who we need to speak to, we're doing what we need to do, and now we're just really hoping that things start to improve. I'm still on an endless amount of supplements and things like that to help manage my microbiome, to help manage that and keep infections at bay anyway, to help improve my egg quality, to help manage my moods, my PCOS, things like that. So we're still following the diet plan, we're still following the supplement plan. We do have days off. I'm not gonna lie and pretend that last night I didn't eat a pork pie, some Pringles and a very large chocolate bar. Not gonna pretend. But for the most part, we are very good and we completely follow what we should. So we are now moving back in the right direction, but whether or not we're gonna have a cycle before Christmas is really quite up in the air at the minute. And that is the only bit that is really stressing me out. We're just like, I think we're so desperate for this cycle to be better than the previous ones. We are so desperate for more embryos. We are so desperate for frozen embryos. If this fresh transfer doesn't work, of course we'll be devastated, but this time we're like, we need to have some in the freezer so that we can utilize those 2 frozen transfers that we get from the NHS. And if we don't have any frozen embryos and we don't get to use those 2 frozen cycles that we are allowed on the NHS, then we're back at square one and we're back at paying for another fresh cycle at another clinic. Maybe not another clinic, but I think we would go to another clinic. We would go abroad, because I just don't think we can justify the price of doing a fresh cycle in the UK. And I loved ARC, I loved Dr. George. In all honesty, if it wasn't for the NHS cycle, there is no way on this earth that I would even contemplate going anywhere else. So we're really desperate to get further this cycle than we have before. I never ever thought that my 3rd cycle of IVF I would still have no frozen embryos whatsoever. So that is the bit that is stressing us out. I think it's just the prospect of not having any frozen embryos, and at the moment that is so much harder than the fresh cycle and the prospect of that not working, because we're just still so up in the air about whether or not we can really afford to go again, whether or not we really want to go into a 4th cycle if we have to. And we are running away with ourselves, of course. Like, we've not even started this cycle yet, but I think one thing you do with infertility is you always think about the what ifs, and you almost have to plan for the next steps just in case. So that's where we're at. We're at a point where we're like, right, what do we do if we don't get any frozen embryos? But by improving Marco's sperm and sorting out the DNA fragmentation, then hopefully we won't be in that situation because our embryos will get to day 5. And that's it. And that's why there is so much onus on these results, because this could be the game changer for us. And so there's no point us going, well, do you know what? We'll just take a risk and we'll go with CRGH and we will go and do this cycle and just hope for the best. Because if that fragmentation does not improve, our results are not going to be any better whatsoever. So yeah, so that's where we are now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think it's just, every now and again, I just think it's important to just sit and talk about the process rather than just following it. Because if I, you know, it's all well and good me saying, oh, we're having these tests done and these tests done, but if you don't know what they are, then it means nothing. So I hope this has helped to explain our process a little bit more, where we're at. If you haven't already, do make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. I do upload on a Sunday. Note how I didn't say every Sunday. I do upload on a Sunday, and there will be videos going forward, so that's really exciting. And yeah, like I said, if you don't already, do make sure that you follow me on Instagram, because I am there all the time. And yeah, one thing I would like to ask you actually is I am looking to relaunch my podcast. So previously my podcast was for members of Innovation Fertility only. It was called Am I Overreacting? I am looking to start that up again, but what I would like to do is, rather than it just be about infertility, I think sometimes when you do everything about infertility while you're still going through it, it makes it really hard, and I can't always breathe. So I don't want it just to be about infertility. What I want it to cover is a whole host of women's issues. It is going to be a public podcast, so I am going to be uploading it to Apple and Spotify and wherever it is that you get your podcasts. But I don't want it to just be me. I want to be interviewing different guests and having conversations about really important issues. Obviously, I don't want it to be really heavy and every week you listen to it and you feel like you've got a million bricks suddenly on your back. I want it to be about important topics, but people who make it interesting and people that are really good and fun to talk to. So topics that I want to cover, for example, of course, I will cover your things like your infertility, your IVF, your endometriosis, your PCOS, your premature ovarian insufficiency, so on and so forth. I want all of those topics covering, but I also want to cover things like the gender pay gap. I want to cover things like sex education at school and menstrual health and all different topics like that, you know, the violence against women, things like that. There is so much that I want to cover on this podcast. So if there's any topics in particular that you think I'd love to hear opinions on this, I'd love to hear people speak about this, I'd love to hear experts speak on that, please do drop a message in the comment box below. Let me know what topic, let me know who. If you've got a few, you can always send me an email. My email is hello@amberitso.com, or you can use the contact form on my website. So all of that is in the description box below. But thanks so much for watching. It means an awful lot that you are interested in my journey. So thank you so much. And I will see you during the week on Instagram, and I will see you next Sunday for another video. So take care, have a great week.